came to the island in 1977, and that's after we'd worked for a couple of years at a stained glass studio in Seattle. So we knew working together that there was a possibility of a future, but when we moved to Bainbridge, there was really no second thoughts about what we wanted to do, and that was to pursue glass art and whatever that necessarily meant. And then Diane had worked with the Park District doing teaching stained glass classes. So she knew some people on the island, and by coming to the island, I was overwhelmed by such beautiful country, so close to the city, and yet, you know, here you are in the countryside. And the people we met along the way instantly were just really warm and really made it comforting. And there was, I mean, to sit here now and look back on that, some really special times, special people to get you to where you're at now.
I hired out at the studio because I had just lost funding. I was in a state-run program that lost its funding in the 70s and had some windows to repair, and so I went around looking for a place to repair them, and ran into the studio in Ballard, and the guys there were going, well, you know, we got all these tables and we're not very busy, so if you want you can just repair them yourself, because it's not, you know, you can do it, and just don't ask too many questions, you know, because everything was kind of secretive, don't say anything. And so I did, and then they lost their fabricator, and so it hired me on as a fabricator in the afternoons, and you worked in the morning. And so we didn't meet for a while, a few months, and then we met and worked together for quite a few months, and then we decided to start our own studio. So we left that particular studio and went separately. Greg in Wallingford and I was on Beacon Hill for about a year, and then we decided to move to Bainbridge, and had it, like Greg said, we met some folks, or I knew some folks that had a place that we could rent, and so we started, and that's when we started Bonciolini, which was 1977. Yeah, Bainbridge just took us in. It was, I don't know how it started particularly, but you know, an intelligent community, very interested in the arts, very supportive. And I guess it was the Polly Dennis Gallery, which was where Church Mouse is now, and run by Dorothy. She was the main person, and I think Effie was her assistant. And they had a competition, and the awards were Best Island Artist and Best of Show. And so we decided we would enter 2 pieces of stained glass at the time, because that's what we were doing, and they both won. Each won one of the prize. And it was like, oh, okay. It was like a shock, and it was so complimentary. And then I think from there things happened and just started.
Word of mouth was huge back then, though. Mm-hmm. It was interesting. You didn't have to advertise.
Yeah.
If you had, and just before that, that was just a year after we moved here. But in the process, just meeting one client, doing one piece, and then that someone saw it, and then they came, mm-hmm. and it was just a, you know, a domino effect, if you will. But yeah, the early award scenario was like, well, this is home. And this is going to work.
We have one friend who is past, well, they both are past now, but, you know, I would be frustrated at different times in working, and, you know, I had babies, I had a husband, I had a business. Nothing was where I wanted it to be. I didn't feel I was a good enough mother, didn't feel I was a good enough wife, wasn't a good enough artist. It's like, what's going on? You know, and she would always come in, especially with when the kids were young, would just come and say, you know, it's your turn to be a mother right now, you know. This is, family is what you're all about right now. And your art will come.
I was born in Eastern Washington and came over here in 1973 to go to school at the University of Washington. The art in Spokane wasn't necessarily really out. There wasn't really anything unique or what have you. It was more historical art that you were into, so that's how we would go to museums and see that kind of a deal. I worked a lot with my hands though. With my father I did model airplanes and models in general. So I think that is got the feeling of I like working with my hands. Came over to the University of Washington, and at the time my brother had the glass studio in Ballard. And it was the beginning of the movement in Seattle. Quite a few recognizable people would swing by their studio in Ballard, and now they're world renowned. So it was real fun to be that part of growth of glass in Seattle in the mid-70s, much like being part of the growth of the art world on Bainbridge the last 35 years. It's just, yeah, I look back and you're just a participant in something that played out. You had no idea what was going on. What script? I missed that one.
So I was born in Tacoma, Washington, and I was one of the ADHD kids that would always look out the window, but was very shy, still can be, and so nothing really hit until my mom got me into sewing, and I started making my own clothing, and she was wonderful at supporting all of us kids, or I have 3 siblings, of keeping us involved with something that involved our hands. I mean, so sewing was my thing. And I went and, actually went to college to go in design, clothing design, which was the turbulent 70s, and that lasted about the first quarter. I came from the point of, what is this offering to society? Where now I know what it offers society and how important it is. But then I was like, I need, social justice was pretty important, and so that's where I spent and directed my energies. And then it was through a series of programs. I mean, I worked at the Pretty Treatment Center for a few months, and it was like, boy, this isn't where I want to be. This is a little confining. This is not where my mind and creativeness needs to be. So that's when I started on the road with the stained glass window, looking for a place to get it fixed. It was a piece that was given to me, and that, again, being smitten with glass, led me to where we are, and working with my hands. That's where I'm happiest. Okay, the thing that gives me the most pleasure is working with young children and just seeing how creative they are and how unobstructed they are in their thoughts when they're given a medium. And glass is not something that always is in the schools. It's in the schools a lot more. But we've had some wonderful opportunities to go into schools and not just work on little projects, but do a number of murals. And that allows us to be with the children longer than a few hours, but maybe some consecutive days, and then allows them to get to know you, understand what an artist is, and that it's a possibility for them if they want. And that everybody's an artist, and not to come from the point where you're not good enough. Everybody has something to offer. And then besides that, the opportunities that my clients give us to be giving us a little more freedom in what they would like to see. Maybe they have the space that's constricted and a possible idea, but allowing us to put our designs and ideas on paper without a lot of input, some input, but not a lot. So that's very satisfying when you come up with that.
I think what's very satisfying are the public art pieces that we do have out. We're reminded constantly of folks who've around the island that have seen things and all, and for us it's just humbling to be walking around and see people looking at your work and taking an eyeball and microscopically checking it out or whatever. And we do have little meanings in everything that we do. And that's been the last 13, 14 years, I believe, that we've really done those.
14.
It's really rewarding to run into educators that you've worked with in the past, and they respond to you by how much of that art piece still means to them. That is always ever rewarding for us.
I think we probably see things maybe slightly differently, but I see, when I think of where, I guess I think a little more personally within in terms of where my art is going, what I'm doing. Windows and fuse pieces are kind of how people, and slump pieces are how people know us now, but I'm having fun learning about jewelry, learning torch work, which is can be more sculptural. I like being able to do, and even though we've never done it before, like we can do it, we can figure it out, we can figure out how to do something, and that's exciting, and who knows what it might be, but I guess there's no end. There's just not enough time. That's what we're realizing now. There's not enough time.
We realize that it's actually less time to go than the ideas that you've have in your head that have been kicking around for decades. Now it's probably time to get those out there and get doing them, But, our clientele has almost dictated our path in the past too. Someone will come with an idea and we'll implement it or execute it. That's really a fun thing to do. That goes with young people today. I try to have them focus on something that they have a good passion for and stick with it and give it time. Don't do what we do and go like a bee from flower to flower because you're thinking that this just might be the way that we do it. But yet we've grown through all those different stops and bumps and goes, different techniques, move into different arenas that we can fulfill for projects. So all of that is relative, in one way or another. I've always had a saying about feather in the headdress because that's kind of like your life, the headdress as you die. All these projects, all the things that we've done are feathers in our headdress. And oh, by the way, this is the best feather, biggest, brightest feather we've got. Thank you very much.